We're moving on to the second part of this worksheet where we're going to be coloring in our color wheel. The outer portion of our color wheel is just heavy pressure using a base color. This is our color that is untouched with other ones. It's the color that we associate an object with. We're filling in the primary colors first. So red, yellow, and blue are our primary colors. I'm filling in the entire section using proper craftsmanship, so it's very neat, and I'm filling in a majority of this section. I'm going to finish coloring in the primary colors using heavy pressure. You'll notice when I'm doing this that I add a number above the section that I'm filling in. That is the number colored pencil that I prefer you use for this section out of your Prismacolor kit. So I just finished 325, that is the reddest red that I have. Now I'm coloring in the blue. I'm using 306, it is the bluest blue, and by that I mean it's just the color we usually associate with blue. It's usually going to be not the darkest, not the lightest, it's just that middle ground blue. You're going to finish filling in your primary colors, and then we'll move on to the secondary colors. We are finished with our primaries, now we're moving on to our secondaries. Our secondaries are just primaries mixed together. So if we mix together red and yellow, we would get orange. That is why it's a secondary color. Our other secondary colors are green and purple. So if we mix together blue and yellow, we would get green, and if we mix together blue and red, we would get purple. We're going to do just like we did with our primary colors. We're going to fill that in using heavy pressure using our base color. So we're going to be moving on to our tertiary colors. Our tertiary colors are our secondary and primary colors combined. So when we mix together red and orange, we get red-orange. When you are labeling tertiary colors, the primary color always comes first, and then it is the secondary color. So it would be red-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, so on and so forth. We might be able to find those colored pencils in our kit, but instead what we're going to do is practicing layering one more time because it is such an important aspect of coloring with colored pencil. I have a light layer of red. I'm going to go over top of that with orange, start to mesh those colors together a little bit. I'm going to include about 3 or 4 layers of each color on top of one another using very light shades because it is easier to build up a color by layering on top, instead of just going heavy pressure, calling it quits. Those layers will be what helps combine your colors together. So although it is tedious, although it takes a long time, layering is a very important aspect of this. What you're going to do when you have enough layers too is you're going to practice varnishing one more time. So you typically varnish with the lighter color of the 2 that you're layering or the multiple that you're layering. My lightest color when I am combining together red and orange is orange. Orange, if I were to turn this image black and white, it would appear to be lighter than my red. So I'm going to, when I'm all done with my many layers, I'm going to use heavy pressure with my orange. So the next one we're going to do after that is going to be orange and yellow. I would varnish with yellow. Then it would be yellow-green. I would varnish with yellow. Then it will be blue-green. I would varnish with green because green is darker than blue. Then it would be blue-violet. I would varnish either way with those. Both of those are very dark colors, and we'll learn about those in a little bit when we're talking about creating a shade. And then the last one and the tertiary set is red-violet, and I would varnish with red since it is the lighter of the 2. It's best to varnish using a lighter color because if you were to use heavy pressure with a dark color, it might be too overwhelming and just completely take over what you're trying to shade in. When you use a lighter color, it provides more of that pressure and squishes all of your layers together without as being overwhelming as a darker color may be. Now that we're finished filling in the outer portion of our color wheel, we're going to move on to our second layer by creating a tint. So a tint is just a lighter version of the color. We practiced it on this previous part. So you create a light layer using your base color, so it's the color you associate with an object or the color you primarily use, and then you add white to it to make it lighter. The reason we do that is so that we don't see the tooth of the papers, and it just looks neater, and it also blends it together a little bit more. So you are going to be coloring with your base color and varnishing with white. When you get to the tertiary colors, we are going to be layering the colors just like we did before. So I'm doing red orange now. I'm going to be layering my red and my orange together so that I can create a proper tint of it. You're going to complete this entire portion layering your base color and varnishing with white on top. Now we're going to be moving on to our last portion, which is creating a shade. To create a shade, you combine complementary colors and darker colors. Complementary colors are colors that are across from one another on the color wheel. The complement of red is green, so I'm going to be layering the two together just like we did on our previous section. When you're doing this, make sure to include very, very light layers. If you go too dark with your complement, it will appear very muddy and very scratchy. You want to make sure that you're layering these very light layers on top of one another to create your tints. I also say to layer with a darker color just to darken it up a little bit more, because sometimes when you just combine complements, it does not go as dark as you could want, especially when you're doing some colors that are on the lighter side, like anything that involves yellow. It's always nice to add a darker color into there. You have two available options for your darker colors. One is that dark violet color, and then another is the dark blue. You would use violet when you're using colors that are warm, and you would use blue when you're using colors that are cool. So your warm colors are red, orange, yellow. Your cool colors are green, blue, and purple. You're going to follow the same steps for the entire rest of this color wheel to create your shade. So you layer a dark color very lightly, you layer a complement very lightly, and then you're going to varnish with your base color. So I had my complements layered, I had my dark color layered. I can go in using very heavy pressure using my base color. In this case it is red, and I can see that I have a shade of red. It is a lot darker than my original base color, and it is definitely darker than my tint. You're doing that same process for the rest of this color wheel. At the end you'll see a final picture.